Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Deborah Exner, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's candidate debate. Before we begin, please silence all phones and electronic devices. Additionally, please refrain from any interruptions to the debate as it is being recorded for on-demand viewing and post-captioning services. Joining us this evening is Ms. Paula Jones from the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor for this evening's debate. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform and public education measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. The Clean Elections Act was created to allow campaigns to be more issue-oriented and less negative. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who participate voluntarily. The candidates agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules, which include contribution and spending limits, foregoing special interest money, as well as participating in commission debates. The candidates are invited to have been invited to participate tonight are in contested primaries. Candidates in uncontested primaries have not been included in the debate process. For tonight's debate, questions have been prepared by Clean Elections based on a voter survey, as well as questions that have been submitted by voters through the Clean Elections smartphone app. However, we encourage live audience questions first. So fill out your cards. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the note cards given to you when you walked in and hold them up. Our volunteers will collect them and bring them to me. If you need additional cards, just raise your hand. We screen questions for clarity, to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for 60 minutes, so we may not get to all audience questions, but we will do our very best. There is an independent timer right here in the front who will see that all the candidates have their allotted time to answer questions and will tell them when their time is up. Tonight's debate includes a 1-minute opening statements from each candidate, a lightning round, and the first half of the debate begins with 2 minutes to answer audience questions. Each candidate will answer the same audience question, and we will rotate which candidate responds first. After all candidates have responded to the question, the first responding candidate will be given an additional 30 seconds. The second half will follow a different format, where each candidate will have a different question with 1 minute to answer. Then we'll end with 1-minute closing statements. If you have questions for a specific candidate, please include the candidate's name on each card. It will be considered for the second half of the debate. We ask that you remain polite to all the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with what's being said. Tonight's participants are running for office in District 29. Mr. Martin Quezada, Democrat for the State Senate, and Mr. Richard Andrade, Democrat for the state as a state representative. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting with the Senate, for opening comments, and will progress from that starting point. The closing order will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name. Mr. Quezada, will you start the opening statement, please?
Yes, thank you. I first want to start off by saying thank you to the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. I am, first and foremost, a huge supporter of clean elections and the clean elections concept all around. I think it was a wonderful thing that was adopted by Arizona, and it is an agency and a mission that I think we should only strengthen in Arizona. So thank you for holding this debate, and thanks for having me here. I am Martin Quezada. I'm your state senator. I was elected to the House in 2012 and to the Senate in the Senate in 2014. And I appreciate your votes there. You elected me over my opponent, who's not here tonight, each of those times. And I think since then I've been your champion on every issue, every progressive issue in the state of Arizona. I have been front and center leading that discussion and leading that debate. I've earned the trust of my colleagues at the Senate. I've earned the respect of my opposition. I've even earned the trust of all of the community organizations that have endorsed me. So thank you, and I'm anxious to start.
Mr. Andrade.
Yes, I'd like to thank the Clean Elections Commission for hosting this debate, because this is very important. This is where people that are watching this get to learn where we stand on certain issues and why we want to run for, like myself, run for re-election, because I've been working hard to represent my district about the working families. And one thing I bring strongly to the table is, because of my background with labor, you know what, our state doesn't take care of the working families. And in fact, today, TANF, the cuts to TANF went into effect. So I hope I get some of those questions today, because today is one of those days we can answer a lot of these questions that greatly impact LD29. And to be able to represent LD29 is an honor, because I am here to serve the people in LD29, because we're all in this together. And once again, the clean elections, I support it very strongly, because it keeps the influence of big businesses and corporations. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. To break the ice, we'll start with a quick lightning round. Please answer with just one word. Mr. Andrade, Pandora or Spotify?
Pandora.
Okay. Mr. Quezada, Lumberjack, Sun Devil, or Wildcat?
Oh, Sun Devil twice over.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we will begin with the portion of the debate where each candidate will answer the same question with 2 minutes to respond. The first question is for Mr. Quezada. In the state of Arizona, you're required to obtain a license to drive, to operate a business, and even to get married. However, you are not required to obtain one to use a firearm. Should the state take the lead to require both a license and some kind of safety education to use one?
I think that's a great question. In Arizona, we have gone backwards in terms of the way that we look at the regulation of firearms in the state, and we have become the most wide open state in terms of who is able to access firearms and carry them out in public and carry them concealed in our state. Now, that poses some risks. That poses some safety risks. I strongly believe that we can both respect the Second Amendment, the right to carry arms, and enact reasonable laws that keep us all safe. Those are not conflicting values. They're not conflicting public policy issues. You can, and we should do both. To be specific about your question, I think that regulation of firearms is a conversation we should be having. Let's know who is carrying guns, who should not be carrying guns, and let's know and let's be more secure about ensuring that people who should not have guns aren't getting their hands on guns. And by that, I'm talking about people with felony records, people with histories of domestic violence, people with mental health issues. We've seen what has happened in our state, or not just in our state, but across our nation, when people who should not have guns get their hands on guns and are able to do things in our community that are truly unfortunate. It's happening more and more frequently, more and more often, and it's time for us to step up and have a real courageous conversation about how to accomplish both of those goals.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. It clearly states that we have the right to bear arms. I'm also a veteran, so I was properly trained in how to handle weapons. The high-powered weapons that are the AR-15, for example. I like what one of my coworkers said. If you need to take an AR-15 hunting, then maybe you shouldn't be out there hunting, because it only takes one bullet to kill a game. So we need to have that serious conversation. We need comprehensive background checks. We need to keep these deadly weapons out of the hands of especially the mentally ill. Just recently in Dallas, we saw somebody who had access to a deadly weapon, and we saw the result of that because there was something going on. And that's why I strongly say, hey, you know what? Even though it's our right to bear them, we have to be responsible and make sure that we prevent these kind of incidents from happening, because it's happening too much and it's happening too often here in our country. And we need to make that brave decision and say, okay, you know what? If you're not able to bear that arm, then you should have no access to it. over and over again, I hear all the time from coworkers who carry weapons, who go out and use it for recreational. They're doing the right things, so we need to make sure that we protect their rights for the ones that are complying with the laws the right way. And when it comes to licensure, yes, I mean, we do it for everything else. We do it for vehicles. And the fear that, I don't want the government to know what I own or what I have. Well, they already know everything about you. When you go buy a house, you give them your social security number. You give them all the information. So to have that fear is exactly that. It's a fear, because we already do that with many other avenues and aspects of our lives.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, your additional 30 seconds.
Just that, again, I want to emphasize that the two issues of respecting the Second Amendment and enacting reasonable, fair regulations on firearms are not contradictory to each other. You can and we should attempt to marry both of those issues together. And I think those are the conversations we need to have, and we have not been having those conversations as of yet at the Capitol. And that's something that I'm pledging to do if I'm reelected.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, if more funds were appropriated for District 29, what would be your priorities?
Thank you so much for that question. If we had more money in LD29, of course it would go to education. I mean, I've been to a lot of our schools here in the district, and they're doing great things. And I always tell myself, they're doing great things with a little bit of money. Can you imagine what they would be doing with a great amount of money? They would be able to, we have school teachers who've come up with ways to go out and do fundraising for guitars, because they teach students how to play the guitar, because that's so productive for them to learn an instrument. One of our schools, they taught their students how to use pieces of PVC to play it as an instrument, because when it's cut at lengths, they're able to, it has the same effect as playing an instrument. What else would I do with that money? I would make sure that we take care of our most vulnerable. Because once again earlier, you heard me talk about the cuts to TANF. It was reduced to 12 months, and you know what? Those families that are struggling today, trying to put food on the table, now can only have 12 months. We need to increase it back to the 24 months. Other things, it's taking care of our infrastructure. You see how our roads are. A lot of our roads are deteriorating, and it's like riding on gravel. So we need to rebuild our infrastructure. One thing I always say is, why does everything get put over there towards the East Valley? Well, you know what? My constituents, the people in LD29, deserve the same things we have, that they have over there. They deserve those very same things. Access to affordable education when it comes to community colleges and our higher universities. They have the right to be able to go to a nice park. They have the right to be able to travel on safe roads. They have the right to be able to make a living. And that's what I would do, and that's what I would prioritize. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, same question.
Yeah, I think it's real important for voters to understand that unlike Congress, in the state legislature, we can't specifically direct money to our legislative district. That's not something we can do. In Congress, you can do that. You can get money from the federal budget specifically for the state of Arizona. I can't get money specifically for LD29 at the legislature. But what I can do is I can direct the greater state budget to address needs that are specific to LD29. So that's important. So if there are candidates promising, I'm going to bring X amount of dollars to Maryvale or to Glendale, they're not being honest with you, because you just can't do that. But with that said, I agree with Representative Andrade, and I'm proud to stand with him on a lot of these issues. Schools is obviously the most important thing. I mean, our public education, the money that came in through Prop 123 only covers a tiny bit of what is needed in our schools. I serve as a school board member, so I can tell you that we have a long way to go in terms of funding our education. Not just increasing the pay of teachers, increasing the pay of classified staff. Classified staff are the people who drive the buses, who serve the food, who clean out the trash bins at the end of the day, and they also live in our communities. They live in LD29. Teachers, not always necessarily, but in higher numbers, classified staff live in your district. We need to treat them well and pay them a living wage. infrastructure is important, and in Maryville in particular, and in Glendale, our infrastructure is crumbling. And like Representative Andrade said, we do need to redirect resources that the city of Phoenix has more control of into the part of Phoenix where it is most needed. We have great relationships with our city councilmen, and we are always, both Representative Andrade and I are always urging them to do just that, to make sure that the Maryville part of Phoenix gets its fair share as well.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, your 30 seconds.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm going to piggyback on what Senator Quezada said. We do have a working relationship with our city councils, not only our city councils, but also our county government with Mr. Gallardo, Supervisor Gallardo, and also with the federal government, which is our Congressman Gallego. We have those working relationships, and we are currently working on those issues here in our district, because one thing we realize that we are stronger when we're working together to bring these things we need here in our district.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, labor unions are active in Arizona. What role do you have in a union, if any, and what do you think a labor union's role is in the workplace today?
Well, I'm a proud member of AFSCME, and I had been a previous member of AFSCME when I worked for the state of Arizona, when I worked on the legislative staff, and I joined again recently as a member of the legislature, and I'm proud to do so because I stand behind the working families of our state, our county, and our municipal governments. Unions play a vital role in the effective governance and the effective administration of all government agencies. And it's true, I have a very strong working relationship with the unions in our school districts, with our teachers, and I always tell my superintendent in my district that a union is there to ensure that we are all meeting our obligations, that not only are we doing what's best for kids, but we're doing best for employees. And employees are just as an important part of any school district and any other government entity as the rest of the people who are served by that entity. I have been a big, proud supporter of our labor organizations ever since I've been elected. I've gotten their endorsements continuously, and I think that this is one of the particular issues that differentiates me between my opponent, because we have very differing views on what a labor organization plays in government, and I have been supportive. My opponent has not.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, same question.
Yes, I am a proud member with SMART. I've been with SMART for 22 years. And on top of being a proud member of SMART, I also contribute to PAC. I am one of the highest donors when it comes to PAC, Political Action Committees. Because one thing we're taught about is that we have to play a vital role in making sure that we have a voice when it comes to equality, dignity, and respect in the workplace. Today in Arizona, many employees do not have that. Many employees are harassed. I've been out in the district, a lot of protests and everything. And the one thing that always comes up, it's not always about pay like we're all led to believe. It's about having respect in the workplace. The story of a woman working in a workplace where she was forced to wear rubber gloves, and they mounted on her, and they didn't seek medical attention. They let her sit off to the side for an hour before they told her finally go home. Being harassed in the workplace because sexual harassment, and that's what unions do today. They fight for that. They fight for workers' rights. A couple of the strikes that I've been to with the bus drivers were fighting because they needed restroom breaks. Some of them were wearing Depends. So that's why it's so important to support for me, because I see what's really going on. And many people don't realize that unions have fought very hard so that we have a 40-hour work week. That way we have protection, that we have a voice when we're accused of doing something wrong, that the facts are looked at. And that's why unions play an important role, because the one most important thing is they educate. That's why I'm here today, is because the education the union offered to me. And if it wasn't for them to teach me about what's really going on in the political world, I wouldn't be here today.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, your 30 seconds.
Oh, I always forget about the 30 seconds. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with Representative Andrade, and it's important for the public to understand what labor unions have done, not only for the state, but for this nation. Literally, the 5-day, 40-hour work week, paid sick time, all of those benefits for working families have been as a result of labor organizations rallying, organizing their members, and working with their management to ensure that the workers got those protections.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, what is your stand on a woman's right to choose what she does with her body?
Thank you so much. One endorsement I'm very proud of is Planned Parenthood Advocates of Arizona, PPAZ. We have no business telling a woman what to do, and that's why I support choice. But we have to look at what they're about, what Planned Parenthood is really about, preventing unwanted pregnancies, a medically accurate, age-appropriate sex education, also a healthy living. That's what PPAZ does. They do those things, and for what they're being targeted. I always talk about this because I know a lot of times it's really hard to talk about. But do you realize that many times when we're sitting there at the state legislature and we're listening to legislation that targets Planned Parenthood, we don't want you to have your choice, is what our Republican-led legislature is saying. We don't want you to have your choice. We want to be able to govern your body. We want to be able to, what your medical needs. We want to be able to take over control of that. Okay, but what about the many children that are in DCS custody today? What about the families that are struggling to put food on the table? We need to provide for those families and make sure we could put food on the table. Make sure they're in great homes. But it comes back down to the working families and the struggles they're facing every day. And that's why it's so important that we educate. And Planned Parenthood does that. They educate. They teach people. They teach a wide variety of people about these issues I just talked about preventing unwanted pregnancies and many other issues. And that's why I proudly support them.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, same question.
Yes, and I think this is one of the issues that it's important for voters to understand, that this is one of the biggest differences between me and my opponent, is support for women's reproductive rights. I fully support women's reproductive rights. I fully support a woman's right to choose what she will do with her and her body, and those decisions that are made between her and her doctor. That's a decision that is strictly between a woman and her doctor. I have no business as a man in a suit sitting up at the Capitol getting involved in that decision. And so I have always been a strong supporter of women's reproductive rights, and especially given the high number of women voters in my district and women in general who are in my district who are faced with these difficult decisions every day. We should be supporting them, giving them what they need to ensure that they're happy, healthy, and safe. And supporting women's reproductive rights is a way to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, your 30 seconds.
I agree. I mean, many women in our district, I want them to realize that, you know, I have no business, we have no business discussing this at State Capitol.
Thank you. Now we will transition to the part of the debate where each candidate will receive a separate question with 1 minute to respond. We are still taking audience questions for specific candidates, so remember to write the candidate's name on the card and refrain from personal attacks. Thanks. So we have Mr. Andrade. Have you worked with other elected officials in LD29?
Yes, and that's one thing I proudly take pride in, that I'm able to work with my senator here. We're able to come together and talk about issues that impact our district, and being able to talk not only to my senator, but my congressman, to my city councilman, and other elected officials. We work together to bring LD29 forward. We set aside our differences because we don't have any differences. We realize what's more important, and that's representing the people. That's why I believe strongly that the elected leaders on the West Valley, people need to see elected leaders that actually work together and stand side by side in time of need, not tear each other apart, not criticize each other, not work against us, but actually come together, because I want constituents, I want the people in LD29 to see we are stronger together.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, your opponent has stated that you do not support first responders. What do you have to say about that?
I think it's one of the more kind of silly accusations that my opponent has thrown at me throughout this campaign. She's referring to one bill that I voted on that would have set up a fund through a specialized license plate to fund first responders. That's a wonderful objective. It's a wonderful goal, and I would always support funds that would support first responders. But the way in which she went about doing it is a faulty way. Setting up a specialized license plate, there are over 60 specialized license plates in the state of Arizona right now. In 2015, I believe it brought in about $6.5 million for all of the various different funds. But the only 3 license plates that actually got any money, significant money, were the Arizona Cardinals, the Arizona military, and Arizona veterans. All of the other 57 license plates didn't really get any money at all. So if we're serious about supporting first responders, let's find a better way to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, on education, where do we go after Proposition 123 to fund education?
Well, Prop 123 was supposed to be the first step. We still need to do, as a legislature, properly fund education. I want to remind the voters that Prop 123 was only the settlement on a lawsuit that the state of Arizona and education. It only settled it at 72%. Prop 123 was the first step. The state legislature needs to still continue and properly fund education, but not only restore K-12, but also the cuts to our community colleges and also to our colleges and also our universities. We have not done that in the state legislature. $99 million was cut from our universities, and only a third of that money was given back to our universities. $5 million alone was given to what we call a propaganda school, because they don't like the way students are coming out of our universities. So we need to continue addressing that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, your opponent has stated that you voted against increasing the number of polling places in Maricopa County. Can you share your position?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been the strongest advocate for elections reforms in the state of Arizona. I've introduced more bills about how to make our elections more accessible and open for voters than any other legislator over the past several years, including increasing the number of polling places. She's talking again about one bill where it was after the presidential preference election, which we had a disaster where only 60 polling places were allocated for the entire county of Maricopa, and there was a fix to that was proposed that would increase that number to 200. The problem with that bill was that it didn't allocate where those polling places were going to be. There was no oversight. There was no opportunity for the public to tell the county about where polling places should be located, and that only perpetuates the problem if we don't include those types of protections for our voters. What I did is I stood up and I said, these are the problems that are wrong with the bill now. This is how we can fix it. And what actually happened was later, those suggestions that I made were actually added to the bill, and I voted for it then.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, how involved are you with your constituents and the precinct committee members in LD29?
Thank you. I have taken great pride because actually working with our co-chair of LD29, bringing more PCs into our district, and the door knocking is very effective to reach out. And this is actually my 4th cycle going through the doors, not only in this campaign but many other campaigns, and going out and talking to many people in our communities and getting them engaged and getting to them to start attending our LD meetings. But it's not just about me that has done that. It's been about us. us being strong together, being able to do that together. And that's the great pride I take in, is being able to go out and knocking on the door, and they say, hey, I remember you from 2 years ago. Okay, when are you coming to an LD meeting? And it's worked. And even our county is looking at us now and realizing what's going on in LD29, because we have participation increased by 50%. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, your opponent has stated that you voted against raising the minimum wage. Can you share your position?
Yes. Again, this shows my opponent's inability to differentiate between good legislation and bad legislation. There were two proposals moving through the state of Arizona. One of them is the initiative measure that's just qualified for the ballot recently that would increase the minimum wage to $12 an hour. And another one was an effort brought forth by the Republicans in the legislature that would try to derail the $12 initiative. The Republican measure would have only increased the minimum wage to $9.50 by 2020, which would leave several thousand people still in poverty. It also actually cut the minimum wage for tipped workers, and that's an important point to consider. Tipped workers earn less than minimum wage right now. This would actually cut the amount of pay that those workers would have received. That's not acceptable, because a significant number of my constituents are tipped workers and deserve to also be able to live not in poverty. And that bill would have kept them in poverty.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, how will you make sure everyone will be able to cast their vote in November and in future elections?
Well, thank you. By increasing our voter turnout, by going door to door, but also educating our voters and letting them realize that, hey, now we have deadlines. One bill I strongly spoke out against was the ballot harvesting bill, because they were claiming there was fraud. There was never any fraud, and nothing was ever proven that there was fraud existing. So being able to go out and talk to our voters once again while we're out there and making sure that those early ballots get turned in a timely manner, and extending more services out to our constituents to make sure that they get those ballots in, and even to our polling places. It is so important that we engage our voters and constantly remind them, hey, this is how important it is to vote, and this is the reason we need to vote, and make sure those ballots get in, because it does make a difference. Senator Quezada's race is an example of winning by just a few votes, and being able to talk to the voters and say, this is why we need to do this, because you have a great senator who really represents our district. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, when you drive through Chandler, Scottsdale, and Gilbert, cities in the far east, and you see nice fancy bus stops with shade, but then in the west side, you just see a sign with no shade. Well, what is your position on that?
Well, that's a discussion on the difference between equitable and equal. And there may be an equal number of bus stops in certain parts of town than in others, but it's not an equitable distribution of bus stops or an equitable treatment of the condition of those bus stops. And having a conversation about equitability in all parts of government is an important and a difficult conversation to have, but it's one that we must be having. Because what that means is that certain communities do sometimes need more resources than others. And right now, the West Valley is lacking in a lot of resources in a lot of different ways, not just bus stops, but schools, but parks, but streets, everything from electricity to everything. We need to have conversations about how do we raise the equitability of the way we function in government, and we aren't doing a good job of that right now.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, should the U.S. develop a set of guidelines so immigrants who entered the country illegally can be offered a pathway to U.S. citizenship?
I am a strong supporter of comprehensive immigration reform here in our country. Too many of our immigrant population that have been here for years do not have a pathway to citizenship. Many of them have spent thousands of dollars and have waited many years to become a citizen. I always talk about how important they are to our communities, because as soon as they're citizens, they contribute, because they already contribute. Many times I hear they're not paying taxes, but you know what? They are paying taxes. They go out and buy groceries. They go out and buy gas. They buy products. So they are greatly helping us out. And for all the pieces of legislation I heard this session that targeted them, it only angered me and made me say, you know what, this has to end, because they do great things for our community, and we need to do what we can to make sure that they have a pathway to citizenship. And I will always talk and protect them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, Governor Ducey this month signed legislation that blocks cities and municipalities from limiting the expansion and use of short-term rentals like Airbnb. What impact will this have on Arizona communities, if any?
So, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Governor Ducey this month signed legislation that blocks cities and municipalities from limiting the expansion and use of short-term rentals like Airbnb. What impact will this have on Arizona communities, if any?
Well, I think the short-term rentals are an avenue for businesses to conduct business in Arizona, and I think that unfortunately, if we're going to limit that, if we're going to be a business-friendly state, let's be a business-friendly state not just to the big businesses, but to the smaller businesses. And a lot of times, short-term contracts, short-term rentals, short-term time limits on any type of business transaction are the ones that benefit small businesses. And I have been a big proponent of assisting small business, because most of the business owners and business people in LD29 are small business owners. They're not working for the big corporations. They're running their own small businesses, 1 or 2 employees, and they're the ones that we need to focus on if we're going to help business succeed in Arizona.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, what is your position toward the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, commonly referred to as Obamacare?
My wife's a breast cancer survivor. I always ask this one question: what did people do if they didn't have access to affordable health care? I asked one of my colleagues, one of my friends, and he says, you know what happens, Rich? They die because they don't have insurance. Everybody in the United States should have access to affordable health care. A lot of our hospitals here in Arizona, before Medicaid expansion, were in the red because they were using the emergency room as a doctor. The Affordable Health Care Act now gives them the opportunity to actually have a doctor who they can go see to be able to prevent some of these illnesses and diseases from setting into their bodies. They have access to take care of their children with passing a kids care as well. And that is why I strongly support the Affordable Health Care Act, because my wife has a pre-existing condition, and before the Affordable Health Care Act, they would have denied us coverage. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, do you believe the state government should continue to fund programs that serve families living in poverty?
Absolutely. I think that's one of our most important duties as a state, is to ensure that everyone in our state is able to survive and be healthy and be happy. That doesn't mean giving a handout to people. That means giving an assistance to people that are in times of need. And we have cut those very programs over and over and over again in our state and in our budget for far too long. And what has happened as a result is it has left people in situations of desperation, where they then are forced to make very difficult decisions, oftentimes between putting food on the table or keeping their lights on, between cutting corners to get to work to leaving their child at home without supervision. We can't leave parents in a situation where they're having to make those types of decisions, and the only way that we can prevent that from happening is if we adequately fund programs that take care of people who are in need.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, it seems Governor Ducey and the Republican legislature place more importance and money in prisons rather than education. What have you done as a legislator to try to combat that? What will you do if reelected?
Well, I continue to plan attacking the for-profit private prison industry, which in the state of Arizona, there's mandatory sentencing, meaning once you get sentenced into one of those for-profit private prisons, any minor infraction keeps you in prison. Why? Because there's a quota that needs to be fulfilled because of these contracts that have been signed, which says basically is, you know what, if you don't fill our prison beds to capacity, they fine the state of Arizona. I will continue to introduce legislation that, number one, holds them accountable for public money. We don't have access to that. We can't request those records and say, hey, where's every single penny going to? That's what I've done. I've introduced bills because I want to know where those pennies are going. I've also will continue to introduce bills not only on accountability, but also making sure those officers are properly trained, because we saw what happened in Kingman. For-profit education over incarceration is not the answer.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, what is your position on voters having to provide identification in order to vote in Arizona elections?
This is these types of restrictions on voters have been sold to the public as ways to protect the vote from voter fraud. The reality is that type of voter fraud simply does not exist. Our Secretary of State will tell you that. Each of our 15 county recorders, both Democrat and Republican, will tell you that. There are not floods of people trying to sneak in and cast a ballot at the voting box. So if that's not the issue that we're addressing by enacting these type of voter restrictions like voter ID, what is the motivation? The motivation is to prevent people from voting. And what's happened is there are lots of individuals, particularly Native Americans, who don't have that type of ID, elderly folks who don't have that type of ID. Those people are prevented from voting. And when they are prevented from voting, only the voters who they want to vote are able to vote, and that's why we have the elections and the results of those elections that we have. We need to eliminate all of those types of voter barriers. They are the modern-day poll taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, what will or can you do to stop more dark money coming into our state?
Right now, there's an initiative to get it on the ballot. So if you have not yet signed the petition against dark money, please do so ASAP. Dark money has influenced our politics. The for-profit private prison industry I was talking about earlier, they have contributed lots of money to make sure that they stay in business here in our state. Dark money is influencing our politics. It has taken the voice away from the people. We have an opportunity to sign that petition, get it put on the ballot, and let the voters of Arizona decide. They have conducted polling. 70% of the voters said they do not want dark money to be in our politics, to influence our elections. So what I've done, as part of me doing something, going out and getting signatures, because we need to do that ASAP. So please, I encourage everybody, if you have not done it yet, please do so now.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, in general, do you support efforts to increase the amount of renewable energy, solar, wind, hydro, etc., generated in Arizona?
Absolutely, and it's the common sense thing for us to do. If we are not increasing the amount of renewable energy, our entire existence as humanity is threatened, and that's no lie. We are changing our climate at a dangerous rate. We really are. And for those of the political elements that say that we aren't going through a climate change right now, they're kidding ourselves. And we look at how hot it's been just here in Phoenix, and the fact that we've created a heat bubble in Phoenix that's not even allowing monsoon storms to come in and give us the rain that we need is a problem. We are only going to address that if we re-examine how we are providing electricity to ourselves. And being in the sunniest state in the entire nation, it only makes sense for us to expand the use of solar energy and to invest in solar research to make it more affordable and to make it more accessible to everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, do you favor the adoption of a law to allow for the purchase and use of recreational marijuana among those 21 and older in Arizona? Why or why not?
Yes, I do. I mean, we have seen what has happened in Colorado alone. I mean, the taxes that they're getting off the sale of marijuana. I support it, and this is coming from somebody who will never be able to use recreational marijuana, because in the industry I work for, which is in transportation, we're prohibited from having alcohol or drug use. So saying, hey, should we allow it? Most definitely. Once again, it would eliminate, one thing it'll eliminate is this for-profit private prison industry I keep harping about. it would keep people from using recreational marijuana from being incarcerated for minor drug offenses. The benefits from it alone in medical marijuana, the benefits, especially for cancer patients, we have seen. And even today, the Veteran Administration is looking at it too. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, do you believe the state should invest additional resources into rehabilitating those in the criminal justice system, particularly juveniles? Why or why not?
Yes, absolutely. Criminal justice reform has been one of the issues that I have been working on more and more during my time in the legislature, and we do need to stop the overcriminalization of our society. We need to find ways to rehabilitate people so that when they are released from prison, they're able to be productive members of our society. And we need to find a way to stop criminalizing juveniles. That goes all the way down to the point of re-examining the way that we discipline kids in our school system. And that's an effort that I've been working very strongly with and very strongly on in my role as a school board member. We reformed our discipline model in the Pendergast School District to eliminate a school that was just for the problem kids. We've created a system where we are helping them get their lives back together so that they can be productive students, so that they will then become productive adults. We need to do that at all levels in our criminal justice system. Right now, we are only criminalizing people for the profits of private prisons right now. And our state is one of the only ones whose incarceration rates continue to rise.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, what is your position about increasing individual states' rights and granting less power to the federal government?
Every day I was there at that state legislature, they would always complain about the federal government overstepping their bounds, but our state legislature had no quarrels about limiting the powers from our cities and our counties. So when we talk about this issue, we need to quit doing that to our cities and counties and let our cities and counties govern their own governments, manage their own cities, manage their own counties, because we have no business interfering with their rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, education is often seen as the silver bullet to many social issues. What can be done to fund school districts equally and to ensure that those funds are used by the school districts responsibly?
Well, I'll kind of work on that question from backwards to the front. First of all, responsible use of school district money. That requires you as voters to elect good school board members. And we can do that. There are lots of great school board candidates who are running right now who will be effective stewards of taxpayer dollars at that school district level. If you have a smart superintendent, a smart administrative team, and a smart governing board who knows how to manage money, your dollars will be used wisely. In Pendergast, we did just that. We eliminated the size of our administration. We reduced the number of kids in each classroom by doing that. We can do that. That's effective. Now, putting more money in the schools, we can do that by being better stewards of the taxpayer dollar at the state level. Let's stop giving all these corporate tax cuts away. Let's reinvest that money back where we need to, investing in our schools.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, do you believe there is tension between police and communities of color? How do we build trust?
We have seen recently what's going on in our nation. And one thing I've always been talking about being at the state legislature is about how we need the police in our communities, not as the military, but as a organization that needs to engage in our communities, to go out when you drive down the street, to stop and get to know the people that live in that district, that people that live in those precincts. Get to know what they're doing. Get to know what they do for a living. Today, the tensions going on in our country could have been avoided, because one thing I do agree with, a statement that was made earlier, that we expect our policemen to know everything, to be a counselor, to do many tasks. We need to put them back in the communities, but we also got to make sure that we give them the proper funding so they could put more community resource officers out there to get to learn the issues in that community, because without them, we have something going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, Arizona's veterans are not getting serviced properly through the VA hospital. What do you feel can be done to alleviate this problem?
Well, I think there's a big misconception that the state is able to service our veterans at a level equal to what the federal government can do. I think our number one responsibility is for us as state leaders to be pressuring our members of Congress to do better at servicing our veterans, including our Veterans Hospital. Now, at a state level, we do have a somewhat lesser of a role in dealing with veterans issues, and what we can do is fill those gaps that the federal government isn't doing. And I think, in my opinion, what we need to do the most is service people who are dealing with mental illness. And there are lots of veterans who are dealing with mental illness right now. And that's the first step. If we can't deal with that issue first, that will solve a lot of the problems that come later that a veteran deals with in dealing with their difficult lives as a result of serving in our military. So if we deal with those mental issues first, deal with the basic issues, and fill the gaps that the federal government isn't doing, we'll be better at servicing them.
Thank you. Now we'll move into the closing statements of tonight's debate. Mr. Andrade, would you give the first statement, please?
Yes, once again, I'd like to thank the Clean Elections Commission for hosting this event, because you've heard how we stand on certain issues. I want you to take note who is here this evening, who is here to talk about the issues. We are, because I'm very concerned about our state, and that's why I ran, because what I've been taught, one thing I do realize, that this state takes care of corporations and businesses and not the people. We need to do a better job, take care of working families, to provide for our most vulnerable, make sure that they have the resources, make sure that we're putting money back into education and not into the private prison industry, making sure that we represent our district is so important, because I'm very honored because I serve my district, and I will continue to do so, and I will continue to fight for my district, because the working families in this LD29 deserve and have a right to be able to make a living, have the right to be able to go out and enjoy life.
Thank you. Mr. Quezada, your closing statement?
Yeah, I want to start off by saying that I am very proud to have had the opportunity to serve as your state senator and to serve with Representative Andrade in the legislature. This has been the first time that I've had the opportunity to serve in a district where all of the leaders are working together rather than fighting with each other. These past 2 years have been wonderful. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. My hope is that I can continue doing that in the next legislative session, to work with Mr. Andrade, to work with Mr. Pimentel, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but who has been a strong advocate and a strong supporter of the LD29 family. My opponent is not here for a reason. It's a strategic reason. She knows that she shouldn't be here, and I apologize to the voters for you not having the opportunity to hear her positions on the issues. She doesn't want you to know her positions on the issues. And this isn't a unique circumstance, her not being here today. Just the other day, she serves on the school board in the Cartwright School District. She skipped out on the most important vote that a school board member ever has. She skipped out on the vote on the $167 million budget vote at that school district.
Thank you.
That's a reflection of her priorities. Thank you.
To our candidates, we thank you very much for participating in our forum. And to our audience members, we thank all of you who took time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to visit www.azcleanelections.gov, where you can find information on the upcoming elections, download the Clean Elections app, and learn more about candidates running for office. A link to this video of this debate, as well as other Clean Elections debates, will be posted on that site within 72 hours of a scheduled debate. Please fill out the debate evaluation form you received as you entered and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the Commission and will help improve future debates. Thank you all for coming tonight, and you're welcome to stay and speak directly with the candidates.